Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very wonderful and warm New Year's edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, I'm delighted to be talking with comics creator, writer, editor, RJ, let me try that again. Sorry. RG
RG.
Jarena. RG Jarena. Thank you so much, RG, for jumping in and joining and talking with me. And I love your shirt as well. Uh, we
You're
have some,
Mexican.
yeah,
You're
I love
Mexican.
it. Love it. I'll mention a couple of works here that you've had your hands in, being a writer on projects like Cradle of Filth, but then you've also worked in editing position and stance on works like Crystal Planet, uh, work celebrating Frank Frazetta, as well as work in the world of Bill and Ted. So lots of wide-ranging work that you have in the world of comics. And I'm curious about what makes this a special space for you. What makes comics sort of the special thing that you want to spend your time working on?
That's a good question. First, thanks for having me here. I was just thinking, in a couple of months, I've been doing comics for 30 years. Like,
Wow.
but for me, it's like I started 2 years ago, 2 months ago, whatever. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I've had the opportunity to work on very cool projects. Even before the projects that you mentioned in the United States, my first works were as a writer for Heavy Metal magazine, and
Mhm.
then I had
Mhm.
the opportunity to be an editor there for some years. So it's been a cool ride this last 10, 15 years. It's been like I feel like finally I'm I can say that I've learned something in the last 10 years. The first 20 years were just like absorbing all things that comics can give you. Like
Mhm.
every day is a new thing, every day is a new collaboration. Every market is a very different market. I had the opportunity to work on the Mexican market since the 90s. Like, I'm Mexican, so it's very different when I jump into the American market, and I'm just 6 hours away from the border, so it's not that I didn't know the culture or whatever. I always joke that in the 90s I used to spend vacations on your spring break, and then on my vacation, so I had a whole month of drinking, and it was very cool. But for me, the best thing of comics is collaborating with new people, like every month,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
learning new tricks, learning new ways of telling stories. I've had the chance to work with a lot of people of South America, a lot of creators, European creators, Asian creators, and it's I always expect something, but get something even better, like uh,
Yeah.
uh, as an editor.
Yeah, I love the collaborative process, certainly, and curious about what makes for an especially positive collaboration. You're someone who spent some time in this field, so I'm sure you have some ingredients that you look for.
Um, the most special thing about comics is when creators, speaking as an editor, um, have confidence on the counterpart, like artists and
Mm.
writers. The worst collaborations are when, let me use me as an example, when I think that I know everything about this story, even if I created and wrote it.
Mhm.
It's like
Mhm.
if I work with you, like there's always surprises when you have um, this sense of, I don't know how to say it, surprise of not expecting something, even if you
Mhm.
have a clear idea on your mind, like this process of collaboration. That's, I think it's unique in comics. Maybe in music, but it's a kind of different thing because every musician is doing their own thing and they build up. But in comics, they're working on the same exact thing: script,
Mhm.
art, color, lettering, even editing. Uh, but I think that the best collaborations are, I can't define it. It's born on the moment. For example, let me use a recent example. We're working on a new Cradle of Field comic.
Mhm.
The artist is Enrique Alcatena from Argentina. The colorist is also an Argentinian guy, who has never worked with Alcatena, and the first few pages that I saw, the pages are blowing my mind. But I didn't expect that collaboration to be so cohesive, cohesive.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's the thing about comics. Like it always makes you smile when this happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything you've talked a little bit about the editing side, and I imagine having started on some of the writing and creating side is certainly helpful for that. But anything that informs your approach with creative people and your work as an editor.
I, I, I try to do my homework. I always try to look at creators' strengths and sometimes even this is a cool example. A Mexican college, Jose Omar Ladron, years ago told me that when he started to work with Alejandro Jodorowsky, uh, that Jodorowsky gave him a phone call and Omar said like, I like to do this, and this and that, like spaceships, huge battles. And the
Hmm.
next day, the script was nothing like that. It was like, get out of your comfort zone. Like this is a rural team full of cows and chickens. So I think the best thing is to first do your homework and then try to build up on that. Like
Hmm.
um, I remember some of the bad experiences that I had when I was starting like writing is that local editors just tried to see me as the last thing I wrote. If I wrote a ghost story, this is a horror writer or a sci-fi writer or
Hmm.
whatever,
Hmm.
instead of like really looking into what I liked and what I could do, or any creator or any writer or artist, and then like start that's a starting point, and then okay, this guy can do like cool spaceships, but he can also do like cool um, Roman buildings or whatever because he knows about building things. So that I think that's the best thing an editor can do. Like do his her homework and then let the creators loose. And the thing that we editors is the hardest thing to learn is our work is to not be seen.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
collaborate with creators, but not be the we are not the spotlight. It's the creator show. And that's you have to leave your ego outside of the house and
Yeah.
just start to build this collaboration.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely the idea of like the team and who gets the spotlight, and yeah, absolutely. Uh, well, any particular work that currently has your creative focus, and I'll do a two-part question here. So, things that currently have your focus, as well as maybe things you've worked on that you would point people to that maybe you'd like a little more attention on.
Currently, my main focus is our new company, Ruptura Comics.
Hmm. Hmm.
And of course, the first book that we're going to release is Cradle of Field, the heavy metal band Cradle of Field book. That's like 90% of my time is focusing on editing. But the good thing is, and a couple of months ago, I started to write again because I became an
Nice.
editor. I became an editor because it was in the American market, it was more of a steady job than a writer. Like I
Yeah.
always was chasing the next project, and but then I found that I really like collaborating with creators
Mm.
in it, and I started to learn all the what happens behind the curtain in the American industry, and it's fascinating, like distribution, marketing. Uh, what's the difference between distributing to comic book retailers and doing like graphic novels? The
Hmm.
difference between like I had the opportunity to work with some French licenses, and even if it's comics, very different markets, um, different babies that you have to take care of, like and how do you present these babies to the world? So I started to write again, and possibly in a couple of months I'm going to release a new my first ever Kickstarter with my
Nice.
pal Axel Medellin from Elephant Man. We have been working together since 15, 20 years ago.
Uh,
So
uh,
that's my two main things, like build up this company, Ruptura Comics, that's based on music based books, like the Cradle Field, and there's a couple of licenses that I can talk about right now, but that it's there's a chance we could get them,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
also like start to write a little bit more, like
Nice.
editor by day, writer by night. But those are my two things that have me occupied most of the day. And then,
Nice. Nice.
role playing games and comics and tequilas and whatever. But
Yeah, yeah. All the good things in life.
all the good things in life.
So, what was your first editing work like?
In the American industry, it was a very cool project. It was Heavy Metal 275.
Hmm.
Then it was translated to Metal Pesado in Spanish, but it was translated in-house. I'm very proud of that project because it's the only time heavy metal magazine has in-house done a translation to Spanish. Uh, it, it's a cool story. Like I emailed Kevin Eastman and the then editor, my Paul Dan Berger, and I wanted to like be a guest editor at Heavy Metal. So I said like, let's do this collaboration. Let's this is my proposal. Let's mix up cyberpunk, because for me cyberpunk it's a very American thing,
Hmm.
cyberpunk sci-fi,
Hmm.
and magical realism because it's a
Hmm.
very Latin American Mexican thing. And when they said yes, when Kevin said yes, I was like, now what I'm going to do? Like this is very different things, but the result was very very good, and the magazine sold very well, and there's this thing that the Mexican, well, not the Mexican, the Spanish edition sold very well in the southern states without being distributed officially distributed on previous. I mean, it was just sent to comic book retailers,
Hmm.
and a lot of people bought it, people who spoke Spanish, who speak Spanish. But there was this thing that a lot of American readers who didn't speak Spanish liked this different this magazine that they loved, but in a different language. And this
Yeah,
is this relates to what we were talking about, bringing us together.
yeah.
This is a cool thing. So if heavy metal is my pal Frank Forte, who's now the main guy, the editor in chief at Heavy Metal, is listening to us. Do more Spanish heavy metal magazines.
That's right. That's right. Love that. Yeah. Yeah. That's a New Year's resolution for me is to spend more time with writing too. I feel like there's never enough time and focus on that. So very cool. And I think I have one more official question, and then we can touch on anything that we might have missed. And that is, of course, where people can find you, where they can go and check out some of the things that you've worked on and are currently working on.
The main site is rupturacomics.com.
Hmm.
It's ruptura in Spanish is breaking down rupture, not
Hmm.
not raptor. It's not a religious thing. It's ruptura comics.com. It's the company where I started. Like it was a Mexican indie company in the 90s, and it has been like we have been using it on and off for years. Like when I started working at Heavy Metal, we were producing indie comics here, and then we sold them to Heavy Metal.
Nice.
That was a good time. That's when I started to learn the business, not just the creative uh, aspect of comics, but like the business. Like you can have your own rights, and you can sell them, and there's people willing to pay for your work. You don't have to
Hmm.
like, and that's a cool thing. Like the coolest thing about comics is that they can put food on your table, and it's something that you enjoy. I always tell young guys like we are fortunate that we're working on something comic related. Like not every people has this opportunity to work on things that they enjoy.
True. Very
Like
true.
for
Very
example,
true.
Homer Simpson doesn't work on he's just pushing a button, right?
That's right.
He gets paid for that, but that's something that I'm grateful for. Like we were working, like also in my wife also has been doing uh, she's doing flat color comic for like 12, 15 years.
Hmm.
So all the money that comes to our house comes from comics. So I'm grateful for for the things that I love uh, reading when I was growing up. So
Yeah.
that's a cool thing. Yeah, it's rupturacomics.com, and also my social media is very open. It's my name, RG Llarena, in Facebook or in Twitter or X as it's called now.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Well, you have a creative collaboration at home, even it sounds like with your wife. So that's a lovely step as well, and a part of the journey, I'm sure.
We have we have collaborated like 5, 6 times. She doesn't like me because as an editor, she when she gets mad, she always tells everyone this guy is a bad editor and and a worse husband. So, but yeah, it's cool. It's cool, and she also like grew up enjoying comics, very different comics from like I used to with a lot of X-Men and Batman, and then like Vertigo comics, early Image comics.
Mhm,
She went
mhm,
like Archie comics and local Mexican comics. But then I remember, and this return to your very first question about comics is, I
mhm.
remember she didn't speak English at that time. Well, she understood, but she didn't speak. So we uh, read together Sandman, the issue 50.
Oh,
Uh,
love it. Yeah.
that's one of my like I still have it. It has yellow paper now, but I still have it there. So and I saw her eyes like how how the story blew her mind. Like,
Mhm,
and that's
mhm,
the first time that she realized that comics were like endless possibilities. Talking
yeah.
about the endless family, like Sandman 50, and then she started to read comics of her own. Now we have very different comics that we like, and
Mhm,
very different people who collaborate with. But that's cool. That's the cool thing about comics that you can enjoy something and not be the same thing uh, like in other mediums. Like if we discuss, I don't know, like Batman.
mhm,
Batman for you maybe is the Batman of the 90s, and maybe for me it's of the 80s or or in Batman. So it's the same character, but we are talking about the same character, but very different aspects of this. The detective guy, the guy that that's a cool fighter, whatever,
mhm,
and that's the thing. And I remember when comics started to like in culture started to shift from being just like a niche thing, like a geek thing.
mhm.
Everywhere we go, there's comics, and every time my wife and you still talk about comics, it's a cool thing to talk about. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
That's right.
That's very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Some of that stigma has gone away, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of
Yeah.
the stigma and a lot of the stigma. Every time I go to a comic book convention or to a store, I see more women in there. In the
Hmm,
90s, there was
hmm,
like a couple of female creators, and that's the cool thing. And I'm not even talking about political things or bringing different perspective. It's cool that now we can sell. We
yeah.
guys can sell comics to 50% to the other 50% of the planet, right?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. And as you mentioned, I mean, there's anything from Archie to Vertigo, comics is definitely a medium of endless possibilities. Something for everybody.
I remember when I told her like there's a crossover between Archie and Punisher. And she was what? And
Yeah.
then, you remember that one, right? Like
Hmm, hmm. As well as Archie and Predator more recently. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's the cool thing about comics.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Archie, I'm always glad to talk with you. Always glad to have you on. Wishing you a wonderful new year with lots of creativity. And yeah, I appreciate the conversation and all of the work that you're doing in supporting fellow creatives too.
Thanks, Ben, and I thank you for having me here. And one of the things that I would like to comment is like right now the world is like I don't want to say dark place, but a very like we are divided by politicians,
Hmm,
but
hmm,
comics must have the opposite message. Like we can like superheroes or indie comics, but it's comics, so it's the same thing. We are all on the same boat. So uh, let's enjoy it.
Agreed. Agreed. Absolutely. Stories bring us together.
Exactly. Since we were cavemen, right?
That's right. That's
That's-
right.
or maybe we are still cavemen, but tell more sophisticated stories. But
That's right. That's right. We can all gather around the wall and talk about the things we have in common with the different characters and the things we aspire to. So many times that's what comics are about too. Or what if you had this power? What if you could make things right? So definite
yeah,
possibilities there
exactly,
as well.
exactly. That's one of the first things that I learned about comics. That one of the yeah, let me say, I have to say, it's like my mom used to drive me to school. Of course, it was like 5, 6 years old when you start to read.
Hmm.
And the first comic that she bought me was the local in Spanish Spider-Man issue one.
Yeah.
So I was the cool kid that day. I had this comic about this cool guy that has powers. But she always bought comics. It was like a newsstand at that time, and there was this
Hmm.
place that sold Mexican tortillas. So every time I remember Spider-Man, I remember the smell of tortillas.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
Since it was just a huge experience for me because it was the first comic that I could read by myself.
Hmm.
It was fun. I used to have more comics, more DC comics when I was a little bit younger, but that was the first one I could read. So it was like it's still in my memory. So Spider-Man equals tortillas for me, like
Love
tacos.
it. Love it. Yeah. Yeah. Food and literature and good stories.
Yeah,
Love it. Yeah.
exactly,
It lives
exactly,
in the mind.
exactly. That's the magic about comics.
Yeah. Well, many thanks again. And now I want to eat some tortillas as well and read some Spider-Man. So glad to have you back here anytime. And I appreciate the conversation.